A city, important and alive with all the problems that were common to many medieval cities. This was Sutri, the last city met by pilgrims before arriving in Rome, an obligatory stop before facing the final weary leg of their journey. The new centre was protected by a formidable defence system consisting of 3 fortified hills. Within this fortification were commercial activities and artisans, hotels and inns, hospitals and churches, so numerous that this ancient city was transformed into one of the most important centres in Lazio. At least 12 hotels, 8 hospitals, many convents and countless churches were at the service of pilgrims and passing visitors. The ancient Sutrium developed on the hill which offered the best guarantee of defence and organisational potential. Today there is very little solid archaeological evidence from this period. However, first among them is the necropolis, dug into the tufa and representing the most impressive and significant testimony to the Etrusco-Falisca funeral architecture with tombs which remained in use during the Roman domination. The most conspicuous group of tombs belonging to the urban necropolis unwinds along a rock face of tufa to the left of the modern Via Cassia. Neglected by almost all of the scholars of the 800s and early 900s, the necropolis of Sutri actually represents the strongest, most consistent example of Roman tombs dug in tufa stone within the range of Etruscan Falisco territory. 64 tombs are still visible on different levels. Single rooms, 2 rooms, sometimes even preceded by a large entrance. Already plundered and pillaged during the Middle Ages, the tombs were transformed over the centuries into stables or storerooms for agricultural tools. Inside many of these you can still see today the funeral loculi where the earthenware pot containing the ashes would have been placed. In each of these niches, well defined and visible, are the circular holes destined to hold the containers of the ashes of the deceased. In one of these tombs there is also evidence of burials with mixed rites. It would have had painted plaster walls, often containing a bench of tufa stone, sometimes situated against the furthest wall, probably destined for the laying of the sarcophagus. The external facade of the tomb is decorated with architectonic detail, with 2 broad square panels, where the recesses for the epigraphic inscriptions are still visible. In another, the monumental facade is visible, evident sign of the importance of the deceased it housed. The cell and the entrance wall are now almost completely buried. During the 1st century BC, Sutri was considered by Strabone to be one of the most important and blossoming cities of southern Etruria. During this period of development came the construction of the amphitheatre, rightly considered to be the most important monument of the city. Carved out of a hill of tufa just outside the ancient city wall, it is unique in its kind and was for many years at the centre of a diatribe between scholars who attributed its creation to the Romans and those who sustained it was in fact construction which preceded that time. Today we tend to date the amphitheatre to around the end of the 1st century BC, the Augustan age, and more precisely after the construction of the amphitheatre of Pompeii. The Sutri amphitheatre has a slightly elliptical form and could hold more than 5,000 spectators. Venaziones were held there, which were actual battles with ferocious animals, an older event than even gladiatorial performances. 2 huge arched entrances, of which only one original survives, perforate the side of the hill. These welcomed the spectators, who were directed towards different sectors depending on their social position and their political or even religious office. The most rich and important were given access to the tiers of seats nearest to the arena, the Ima Cavia, and were possibly separated by a balustrade. Around the arena were 10 small doors, 5 on each side, vaguely similar to the model of the typical Etruscan T-door, above which architraves in stone were placed. The doors led directly into the deambulacro, the corridor connecting the different areas of the arena. The cavea consisted of 3 sets of tiers. Only one part of these is still well preserved. Unfortunately, most has been reduced over time to a steep and craggy ramp. At the top, of the first of the 6 steps that compose the media cavea were 8 small semicircular shelves with a seat at the end. 4 on each side, they were possibly destined for important political or religious figures. A large niche or platform was later added in order to create a podium for the Roman authorities. From the outside, the amphitheatre was practically invisible. In fact, there is no precise architectural outline. Instead, we see high tufa walls, peppered with cavities and cracks, perhaps not all created naturally. To make it easier to see, it was crowned with statues and columns placed at the top of the steps. The part below the crowning was dug out to create niches and half-columns whose remains are still visible today. On the sloping part of the hill, the crowning was temporary, with equally spaced statues and columns. The remains of this crowning were found when a dig brought this wonderful monument to light. The amphitheatre remained completely unknown and buried for centuries. Used as grazing land until the beginning of the 19th century, it was discovered and excavated by the Savorelli family, who understood the importance the find would have for the town. The complete excavation of the amphitheatre did not take place until 1936.